Hi, my name's Jeff Dean and I'm Math Dad. I'm here to help you help your kids understand math. Earlier today, I was working with one of my daughters. She struggles with her math facts, and I wanted to take the time that I have with her at home to maybe help fill some gaps, get her caught up where she should be. And I had to try to find some ways of helping her understand the math facts. Because one of the things that tends to happen is we focus on memorizing math facts, and sometimes students don't understand math facts. So I worked with her a little bit to see if I can get her to start to recognize some patterns. And I wanted to share some of those patterns with you. After that, I'm going to share with you a couple of other math fact games that we can play to do math facts without worksheets. Look at what she discovered about math facts. I wanted to start from the very beginning. I didn't know what she knew and what she didn't know. I didn't know what she understood or what she just had memorized. I wanted to see how she developed her math facts. So we started with +1 and +2. And I started simply by asking her, can you count to 20? And she was able to count to 20. And then I asked her, well, what's 1 more than 7? And she would say 8. And what's 1 more than 11? And she would say 12. And when I asked her how she knew, she just told me, well, she could just count. But then things started to get a little weird when I asked her for what's 2 more, because there are a lot of pauses. And what it got me to see is that she didn't understand yet how to go 2 more by skip counting. She had to count. So if I said, what's 2 more than 7? She was thinking in her head, 8, 9. She was still counting up, which is fine for a strategy, but I wanted her to start to see patterns. So here's what I started to do. We started to write. I started to say, what's 7 plus 1? And she knew that was 8. And then I said, well, what's 7 plus 2? And she had to count a little bit before she got to 9. And then I kept going, like, what's 8 plus 1? And she knew immediately 9. She knew 1 more. And then 8 plus 2. And she paused a little bit to count, and then she said 10. But after a while, what started happening was this. What's 5 plus 1? And she said 6 immediately. What's 5 plus 2? And all of a sudden she said 7 immediately without any hesitation. And I stopped her and I said, what did you notice? What are you seeing that made you be able to do that without counting? And she explained, well, I know 5 plus 1 is 6. And I know that adding 2 is just 1 more than that. So she was starting to think in her head that once I know 5 plus 1 is 6, she knows that 5 plus 1 plus 1 more is the next counting number, 7. She didn't have to start back at 5. She saw that pattern on her own. Basically, what she discovered was this pattern in our math facts. That 5 plus 1 is 6, and 5 plus 2 is the same as 6 plus 1, which is 7. She wasn't able to verbalize it that way, but that's basically the strategy that she was using, and she discovered it on her own. I wanted to just explore some other patterns that exist when we're doing math, when we're doing arithmetic. So I set up something that looked like this. And what I did was I put 3 X's over here. And I put 3 X's over here. And I asked her, what math sentence do we make from this? And she saw, oh, well, I have 3. And I don't have anything. And that is equal to 3, which is correct. But then we started to move things around. And I said, well, what if you take one of these and you put it over here? Does that change how many that you have altogether? And she said, no. So what's the new sentence? 2 plus 1 is 3. And then I asked, well, what if we took another one and we moved it over here? And she saw 1 plus 2 is 3. And then finally I said, well, what if we took the last one and put it over here? Does it ever change what our total is? And she said no. And then she saw 0 plus 3 is 3. And then I asked the question, what do you notice? What patterns do you see? And she was able to look at these sentences, and what she told me that she discovered was that 3 plus 0 and 0 plus 3 are the same thing, except the order is reversed. And she said these are the same also. And she was able to verbalize, so if I know 3 plus 0, I automatically know 0 plus 3. And if I know 1 plus 2, I automatically know 2 plus 1. That's the commutative property. She discovered it on her own and was able to verbalize it. I could have just told her it's true, but that knowledge won't stick as much as when she discovers it. And because she's discovering these relationships, the knowledge is going to stick better and is going to translate better for her when she tries to do memorization. Now, check out a couple of games that we can use to help our kids practice math facts once they become a lot more comfortable with the understanding. Here's math game number 1. I call it Addition Math Facts Head-to-Head Challenge. Here's how it works. You have 2 players, and each player puts their token next to a number. Let's say the blue player is player 1. The first thing that they're going to do is move their token to something else. Say 7. And they're going to say 5 plus 7. They can record over on the side if they'd like, or this could be a game where they're just doing things mentally. But because they said 5 plus 7 is 12, they get to mark off a 12. Then it's player 2's turn. They move their token to another spot. Let's say they move it to 3. Well, now their fact is 3 plus 7, which is 10. And since they have a 10, they get to mark off a 10 on the grid. The play continues back and forth until someone gets 4 in a row. So if blue goes here and says 0 plus 3 is 3, they can mark off this one. And then perhaps we're going to want to go here. 0 plus 5 is 5. The nice thing about this is you have to have strategy and math facts because you may have to block someone. So I'm going to go, let's say 5 plus 3, which is going to give me 8. 5 plus 3 gives me 8. So red would want to block. So they may move this to the 6 here and get 6 plus 3 is 9 and block here. But now blue's going to want to say, can I get a 17? Nope, because red's just on 6. This continues back and forth until someone gets 4 in a row. And that person is the winner. That's the Addition Math Facts Head-to-Head Challenge. Game number 2 is virtually the same game, but with subtraction facts. So, player 1 and player 2, they put their tokens on the board. The first player moves their token to a spot, and then they subtract the numbers. So they would say 6 minus 3, which is 3. So they capture a 3. And then it's player 2's turn. Perhaps they want to move to right here, which is 7 minus 6. And they get 1. So they capture a 1. And now I'm going to move down here to 2, which is now 7 minus 2, which is 5. So this person captures a 5. And just like the addition game, play continues back and forth until someone gets 4 in a row. So they may want to be very strategic about which ones they pick and not do what I'm doing, which is just picking random numbers. But when strategy comes into place, you can see all of the math facts that they can be practicing and they can be having fun at the same time. That's the Subtraction Math Facts Head-to-Head Challenge. There are so many ways that we can help our kids get better at their basic math facts. We all know that they're really important. They come in handy as things get more and more complicated. But when they can discover the patterns for themselves and they start to see that math is all about patterns, they can own their learning. For my daughter, the patterns she discovered weren't my patterns, they were her patterns. And now she can say, oh my gosh, I think I get it. She's not trying to remember what I told her. She's starting to remember what she figured out on her own. Now the memorizing can happen. Kids get better at doing things like math facts through practice, and we know that. Some of that practice can be geared towards finding those patterns, and some of that practice can be fun and enjoyable through games like what I shared with you today. And if you would like those resources, make sure you go to my Facebook page at One Math Dad, and you will find links to those there. My name's Jeff Dean, and I'm Math Dad.